I was standing outside the Apple store with a half-finished iced coffee in one hand and a shopping bag in the other when I spotted my Aunt Melissa coming out of Bath and Body Works like she was on a mission. She hadn't seen me yet. Her arms were loaded with lotions and candles, and she had that usual self-important look she always wore, like the mall was her personal runway. I raised a hand and called out, "Aunt Melissa." She froze for a split second, then turned and gave me this stiff, almost uncomfortable smile. Something about it immediately set off alarms in my gut, but I shook it off. It was probably nothing. Or so I thought. I'm Jake, by the way. I'm 27. I'm the kind of guy who's always been quietly responsible. You know the type. First to pay his bills, last to cause a scene. I've got a stable IT job, I rent a decent 2-bedroom just outside the city, and I'm the family go-to when it comes to anything technical or financial. Need help with taxes? Jake. Phone acting up? Jake. Cousin wants a new gaming PC, but has a $200 budget? Call Jake and make it his problem. I never really minded it. Not until recently. My family's big, loud, messy. We've always had our differences, but there was a time I would have sworn we were close. I grew up around cousins like siblings, aunties who treated me like their own son, and holidays that felt like miniature reunions. At least that's how it used to be. Lately, I'd started noticing little things. Subtle shifts. Plans being made without me. Group chats I was suddenly no longer in. Conversations that went quiet when I walked into the room. I told myself I was overthinking it, that maybe people were just busy. But today confirmed what I'd been ignoring for way too long. "Hey, funny running into you," I said, trying to sound casual as I walked over. She adjusted her sunglasses and gave me a tight-lipped smile. "Oh, Jake. Hi. Fancy seeing you here," she said, her voice just a bit too sweet. I brushed it off. "I was just about to grab lunch," I said, glancing at the food court behind her. "You here alone?" "Oh, no. Your mom and the others are around somewhere," she said quickly, then paused like she'd said too much. My stomach flipped. "The others?" I asked. "What's going on?" She hesitated. That smile again. Tight, polite, distant. "Oh, just a little shopping trip before the vacation." My eyebrows shot up. "Vacation? You mean the one to Maui?" She winced, like I'd caught her off guard. "Yes, that one." I laughed, confused. "Wait, when is that? I haven't heard anything since April when I sent the deposit." She shifted uncomfortably, adjusting her purse strap. "Well, it's actually this Friday." I blinked. "This Friday?" I repeated, my voice hollow. I never got the itinerary. No flight info. Nothing. She gave me a sympathetic look that didn't reach her eyes. Well, it kind of turned into a close family-only thing. For a few seconds, I didn't say anything. I couldn't. My brain was still catching up with the words. Close family only. I repeated, barely above a whisper. I'd sent $5,000 toward that trip. A family vacation we'd all talked about back in January, where everyone was supposed to pitch in. I'd even skipped a bonus work trip to make sure I could afford my share early. I remembered Mom telling me, "It's going to be so good to have all of us together again. You should definitely come." I looked down at my phone, my thumb already unlocking it without thinking. "I paid $5,000. I said quietly, still not looking up. Aunt Melissa gave me that same artificial smile and tilted her head. "I know, sweetie, and we really appreciated it. But things changed. It got complicated." I looked up slowly. So complicated no one thought to tell me I wasn't invited anymore. There was no apology, not even a shred of guilt. Just that smug little half shrug that drove me absolutely insane. "We figured you were busy," she said simply. "With work and all. Plus, well, you're not exactly close with everyone these days." I felt something cold crawl up my spine. Not anger. Not yet. Just this quiet, sharp realization I'd been cut out. Not by accident. Not because someone forgot to loop me in. But on purpose. I turned away for a second and stared at the floor. All I could hear was the faint murmur of the food court, someone dragging a shopping bag across the tile, the soft buzz of my phone in my hand. It was a message from my bank, a monthly balance update. The number stared back at me like a taunt. The $5,000 was long gone. Aunt Melissa shifted again, probably hoping I'd just let it go. That I'd smile, make some joke, maybe walk away and process it alone. That's what I'd always done. I was the peacekeeper, the quiet one, the fixer. But not this time. I looked up, eyes meeting hers, and said in a voice much calmer than I expected, "Who booked the Airbnb again?" She blinked. What? The Airbnb. I booked it. In my name. With my account. I held up my phone. Right. Her face twitched. Yeah, she said slowly. But the rest of the details got handled by your mom and Lisa. They coordinated everything else. I nodded. Cool. And the flights? Well, your cousin used your Delta points, remember? She said, then immediately looked like she regretted it. Oh, I didn't remember agreeing to that. But that explained the missing miles from last month. And the rental van? I think you said you'd handle that too, she said, clearly trying to sound innocent. I did say that. Back in February. Back when I thought I was part of the trip. I stared at her. So let me get this straight. I paid the Airbnb. You used my airline points for your flights. And I covered the rental van. And now, I'm not invited. There was no good answer. Melissa just stood there, suddenly finding her shopping bags extremely interesting. I turned and started walking. She called after me. Jake, don't do anything crazy, okay? It's already planned. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Because the thing about being the guy who's always responsible, the one who quietly handles everything, is that people forget just how much power you actually have. And they never see it coming when you decide to take it all back. I walked straight to the parking garage, sat in my car, and pulled up every reservation I'd made. The Airbnb, the rental, my Delta account, the van company, the itinerary spreadsheet my cousin had emailed me back in March, still tucked in my downloads folder. I pulled it all up, slowly and methodically. Not out of anger. Not even out of revenge. Just something colder. Sharper. Because if they wanted to play this game like I didn't matter, then I was going to show them just how much I did. And I hadn't even gotten to Mom's part in this yet. Because that was going to hurt the most. I sat in the car for almost an hour, the engine off, my phone glowing dimly in my lap as I scrolled through the trip reservations. My heartbeat was steady, but my thoughts weren't. I kept going back to that moment. Melissa's fake smile, the way she said close family only, like I was some distant cousin who'd invited himself. Every time I blinked, it echoed louder. Close family only. I couldn't help but wonder what Mom had said. Had she pushed back when they decided to cut me out? Had she fought for me to be included? Or had she just gone along with it? I wanted to believe she didn't know, that she would have stood up for me. But deep down, something had been off for months. No, longer than that. It was just easier not to see. Back in January, when we were all still planning the trip, Mom had been the one texting me constantly. Jake, can you front the Airbnb? We'll pay you back. Hey, your cousin found cheap flights. Mind booking with your points for now? Don't forget to reserve the van, okay? You're the only one with the Costco card. Every time, I said yes. It wasn't just about being the tech-savvy one. It was because I trusted them. Because I believed I was doing this for our family. And because I'd spent years learning not to say no. I was the oldest of three. My brother Tyler is 25. My sister Becca is 22. We weren't exactly close growing up. Tyler was the golden child, always getting praise for the bare minimum, while Becca played the sweet, helpless baby card to perfection. I was the filler kid, the background support character, reliable, independent, invisible. It was subtle how the favoritism worked. Tyler would get a brand new gaming laptop for his birthday, while I'd get socks and a half-hearted, we figured you didn't need anything. Becca wrecked Mom's car once and blamed the brakes. She got a replacement in a month. I lent Mom my car for a week, and she returned it with an empty tank and a cracked tail light. But I let it go. I always let it go. Because what was the alternative? Starting a fight? Burning bridges? I told myself that being the better person meant biting my tongue. That maturity was swallowing resentment. Until today. Because what kind of family lets you pay for everything and then cuts you out of the trip you made possible? I drove home in silence. No music. Just the low hum of the road and the growing pressure in my chest. When I parked, I didn't go inside right away. I sat there for a few more minutes, then opened the group chat, Maui Dream Team, which had gone quiet 2 months ago. I scrolled up. March, me sending the Airbnb confirmation. April, my cousin Aaron confirming the flight bookings. Used Jake's points, saved everyone a ton. Legend, May, Lisa, Melissa's daughter, sending over an itinerary template and asking me to keep track of the schedule since you're good at that stuff. Then nothing. Dead silence. At least, for me. I opened my mom's chat and scrolled through our recent messages. They were sparse. A thumbs up here. A forwarded meme there. No mention of Maui. No heads up. No hey, plans changed. Just passive silence. I don't know what I expected. Maybe an apology waiting for me. A voice memo saying, I didn't know how to tell you. I'm so sorry. Something. But there was nothing. And that silence? That was louder than any insult. I didn't sleep much that night. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying conversations from the past year. Little moments I'd brushed off. The time I showed up to a birthday party and everyone had already eaten without me. The way no one told me Becca had moved into her boyfriend's place until 2 months later. The family game night I only found out about through an Instagram story. Piece by piece, it all fell into place. They'd been phasing me out. Slowly. Quietly. And the worst part? I let them. I woke up the next morning to a text from my mom. It just said, Hey honey, can you remind me what the check-in time is for Maui? I want to tell Melissa what time they can start unloading the bags. I stared at the screen for a full minute. No apology. No explanation. Just a request. Like nothing had happened. I didn't respond. Instead, I got out of bed, made coffee, and opened my laptop. The Airbnb was still in my account. The reservation was active. Check-in was Friday at 4 p.m. I'd paid for the full week in advance, non-refundable, $3, 200 gone in a single click 6 months ago. I remembered the listing clearly. A beachfront house with 6 bedrooms, a private pool, and a massive kitchen. It was supposed to be for the whole family. Supposed to be. I clicked Manage Reservation and stared at the cancellation options. My finger hovered over the button, but I didn't press it. Not yet. Instead, I emailed the host. Hi there. I just wanted to confirm that I'm the sole person authorized for check-in. No one else should be granted access without me. Please let me know if that's clear on your end. She responded 10 minutes later. Of course. Only the account holder can check in unless we're told otherwise. Looking forward to hosting you. I smiled. It didn't reach my eyes, but it was a start. By Thursday, the tension was a steel wire wrapped around my spine. I hadn't said anything. Not to Mom. Not to the group chat. Not even when I saw an Instagram story from Becca showing off her Valkyrie nails with the caption, Hawaii, here we come. My phone buzzed again. A message from Tyler. Hey bro, can you send me the Airbnb address again? We land at 2 p.m. tomorrow. Uber's gonna be tight with all our bags. No greeting. No small talk. No thanks. I didn't respond. At 8 p.m. that night, I got a call from Mom. I let it ring. She called again. Then again. Finally, on the 4th try, I answered. Hey, I said flat. Jake, she said, way too cheery. Finally. Okay, so just a quick thing. Melissa said you had the keys to the Airbnb, and we weren't sure if we're meeting you there or... Why would you meet me there? I asked, voice even. She hesitated. Well, I mean you're still coming, right? I laughed. It was hollow. You tell me, Mom. Am I invited? Of course you are, she said quickly. Don't be silly. Funny. That's not what Melissa said. She was silent. I waited. She sighed. Look, Jake, it's just been a stressful few months. We didn't want drama. We figured you were doing your own thing. No, Mom. You decided I was doing my own thing. You chose not to include me. That's not fair. No. What's not fair is using my money, my points, and my name for a trip you never intended to let me join. Another pause. I could hear her breathing. Then she said, This doesn't have to be a big deal. Just send the info. Let's not ruin the whole trip over a misunderstanding. I was quiet for a moment. Then I said, You know what, Mom? You're right. She exhaled, relieved. It's not a misunderstanding. And I hung up. 10 minutes later, I got a group message from my cousin Aaron. Dude, did you cancel the van? We just got a notification that the reservation's gone. I didn't respond. Then Melissa messaged the group. Jake, please don't make this difficult. We're all packed and ready. We're family. And that was the moment it hit me. They didn't think they'd done anything wrong. To them, I was the help, the credit card, the driver, the background character, and they expected me to keep playing the part. I sat back in my chair and stared at the messages piling in. Everyone was panicking now. No one knew the address. No one had the check-in code. The rental was canceled. Flights were still on, but they'd land tomorrow with no place to go. And then the call came in. From Becca. I answered. Jake, seriously? What is your problem? My problem. You're blowing everything up over nothing. You mean getting excluded from a vacation I paid for? We didn't exclude you, she snapped. We just figured you'd be boring and grumpy like always and ruin the vibe. I laughed. She kept going. This was supposed to be for people who actually want to have fun. And yet you still wanted my money. I said, voice ice cold. She didn't respond. I ended the call. And then I did what I'd been waiting to do. I clicked into the Airbnb reservation. I hit cancel. And then I booked something else. For myself. One guest. Different part of the island. Quiet, private, no family drama. I paid in full. Then I forwarded the confirmation to my personal email, closed the tab, and muted the group chat. But I wasn't done. Not even close. Because the breaking point wasn't canceling the trip. It was what came after. And that was going to change everything. I woke up to silence. The kind that sits heavy on your chest. No buzzing phone. No pings from group chats. Just the faint hum of the air conditioning and the sun creeping in through my blackout curtains. It was Friday. Check-in day. The day they were supposed to arrive in Maui, ready to kick off a family vacation that no longer existed. At least not for them. I got up slowly, the stiffness in my back reminding me I hadn't slept well. My body felt like it had just walked out of a crash site. Not because of anything physical, but because of everything that had come crashing down emotionally in the last 48 hours. I made coffee, sat at the kitchen table, and stared at the wall for a long time. I should have felt triumphant, vindicated. I'd taken back control, made them feel the consequences. But instead, I felt empty. Not because I regretted what I did. I didn't. But because when the dust settled, I realized what I was left with. A family I no longer trusted, and $5,000 I would never get back. And yet, it was the quiet that hurt most. I didn't get any more calls. No more angry voicemails. No texts begging me to reconsider. Nothing. They'd landed, realized the trip was off, and decided to freeze me out entirely. Fine. So be it. I wasn't going to beg to be part of a family that only wanted me around when I was convenient. When I was paying. When I was useful. By noon, I was sitting in the gate terminal at LAX, suitcase beside me, headphones in. My flight to Maui was boarding in 20 minutes. I'd booked a solo Airbnb on the north side of the island, far from the resort they originally planned to stay at. Mine was small, nothing fancy, but it was mine. My name, my money, my trip. I stared out the window at the tarmac as I sipped my overpriced terminal coffee. There was a strange sense of freedom in the pit of my stomach. Like I'd finally cut a cord that had been dragging behind me for years. I boarded the plane, found my seat by the window, and put my phone on airplane mode. And for the first time in years, I let go. The flight was peaceful. Maui greeted me with warm air and the scent of salt and flowers. The drive to my Airbnb was quiet, scenic, and weirdly therapeutic. I rolled down the windows and let the wind slap my face as I climbed through winding green hills toward my little cottage by the cliffs. It wasn't until I stood outside the door, tiny suitcase in hand, that I realized something had shifted. I wasn't here for a vacation anymore. I was here to rebuild, to start over. My Airbnb was modest. Wooden floors, a small kitchenette, a bed tucked against the corner with wide windows overlooking the ocean. There was no TV, no distractions, just a hammock, a coffee pot, and peace. I unpacked slowly, made myself dinner, sat outside under the stars that first night, listening to the waves crash against the rocks below. And I didn't check my phone once. Over the next few days, something strange happened. I began to feel human again. I hiked through bamboo forests. I swam in waterfalls. I read books I hadn't touched in years. I slept without nightmares, without stress. I walked barefoot on volcanic sand and watched the sunrise every morning with a cup of coffee and no one else around. And for the first time in a long, long time, I didn't feel like a supporting character in someone else's story. There were moments when guilt tried to creep in. Moments where I'd remember birthdays I'd spent making cakes for other people, or holidays I'd spent buying gifts for people who didn't care. I'd think about my mom's voice, soft and cold, saying, "We figured you were doing your own thing." But every time that guilt knocked, I reminded myself, they left me out. They chose this. I didn't burn the bridge. I just stopped trying to cross it while they set it on fire. On the fourth day, I got a notification. My cousin Aaron had posted a story on Instagram. Curiosity got the better of me. I opened it. It was a selfie of him and Becca at the airport. They were clearly back on the mainland. The caption read, "Worst trip ever." Don't ask. I smiled. Not out of pettiness, but because it confirmed what I already knew. They'd had to face the consequences. Later that day, I got a text from an unknown number. "Jake, it's Uncle Rob. Just wanted to say I heard what happened. I'm sorry. You didn't deserve that. Hope you're doing okay." Uncle Rob was Mom's younger brother. The only one who ever really treated me like a grown adult. I hadn't spoken to him much in the past year. He wasn't part of the Maui crew. I stared at the message for a while, then typed back, "Thanks. I'm okay. Just trying to focus on myself right now." He replied almost instantly, "Good. About time. Let me know if you ever want to catch up." That one message stayed with me, because it was the first time someone from my family had acknowledged what they did. The first time someone said, "You were wronged." I didn't need a parade. I didn't need groveling. But I did need that. That night, I sat by the beach, letting the waves wash over my feet, and I started thinking about what life could look like without trying to constantly earn the love of people who withheld it like a prize. For years, I had built my identity around being the helper, the fixer, the guy who made everyone else's life easier. I thought if I just did enough, gave enough, was enough, they'd see me. They'd love me back the way I loved them. But love given conditionally isn't love. It's leverage. And I was done being leveraged. By the time my return flight rolled around, I was a different person. Not on the outside. Same black hoodie, same carry-on bag. But inside, something had settled. Hardened. Not into bitterness, but into clarity. I didn't owe anyone anything. Not anymore. The day after I got back, I cleaned my apartment top to bottom. Not out of compulsion, but because I wanted a fresh start. I went through drawers and boxes and pulled out old gifts, family photos, birthday cards signed with generic messages. I tossed most of it, kept the few that still held something real. Then, I did something I hadn't done in a long time. I started applying for new jobs. Not because I hated my current one. It was fine, but because I realized I had stayed in too many fine situations for far too long. Work, family, friendships, always settling, always trying not to rock the boat. I updated my resume, polished my portfolio, even scheduled a few networking calls. And then I opened a savings account labeled self-fund. The goal? Build a life that didn't depend on anyone else's approval. In the following weeks, I started setting boundaries with my family. I left the group chats, blocked Becca after she sent me a snarky, "Hope your little solo trip was worth it" message. I didn't respond to Tyler's Venmo request for half the luggage fees. My mom called a few times. I let it go to voicemail. Eventually, she stopped trying. And as much as it hurt, it also healed. Because when you stop begging for scraps, you realize how little you were getting in the first place. One night, I was at a local bar, catching up with an old college friend I hadn't seen in years. We talked about work, life, relationships, everything in between. At one point, he said, "Man, you seem different. Lighter." And I just smiled and said, "Yeah. I think I finally stopped carrying things that weren't mine." He laughed. Must feel good. It did. 1 week later, I got a call from a recruiter about a senior IT role at a firm twice the size of my current one. The pay bump was significant. The responsibilities, challenging in a good way. I nailed the first 2 interviews. The third was next week. And just like that, things started moving. I wasn't chasing family approval anymore. I was chasing my own life. And every step forward felt like breathing fresh air for the first time in years. But just when I thought the past was done haunting me, a letter arrived in the mail. Plain white envelope. No return address. Inside was a single note. From my mother. And what it said changed everything. It was a cloudy Thursday when the letter showed up. I'd just gotten back from a morning interview. A sleek downtown firm with an office that overlooked the skyline and a break room stocked like a boutique cafe. I felt good about it. Confident, even. I'd worn my sharp navy blazer, nailed every technical question, and walked out with a firm handshake and a "we'll be in touch very soon." I was in the middle of making lunch, grilled cheese with a tomato soup on the stove, when I saw the envelope sticking out of my mail slot. No stamp, no return address, just my name in familiar cursive. It was unmistakably my mother's handwriting. I stared at it for a long time before I picked it up. My fingers hesitated at the edge. 1,000 thoughts rushed in, apologies, excuses, manipulations. Was this a peace offering? A guilt trip? A last-ditch effort to regain control? I peeled it open carefully. Inside was a single sheet of folded paper. "Jake, I don't know what to say that will make this better, but I want to try. Please, before you throw this away or block me forever, just read. You were right. We used you. We took your kindness for granted. And I should have said something. I should have stopped it. But I didn't, because I was scared of making waves. Because I thought if I just kept everyone happy, it would all work out in the end. But I see now what that cost you. What it cost us. I didn't mean to cut you out. I didn't want that. I kept waiting for someone else to fix it. Melissa, Lisa, Becca, anyone. But no one did. And I stayed silent. That was my failure. I don't expect you to forgive me. Not now. Maybe not ever. But I wanted you to know that I see it now. I see you. All the times you showed up for this family. All the times you put yourself second. I'm sorry I didn't speak up sooner. We're having a dinner at Aunt May's house on the 12th. Everyone will be there. I know that probably doesn't sound like an incentive, but if you want to come, if you want to say anything, good, bad, or otherwise, just know that the floor will be yours. Love, Mom. I read it 3 times. Then I folded it back up and set it on the counter. She wasn't wrong about any of it, but a heartfelt letter doesn't erase a decade of disrespect. And I couldn't tell yet whether this was real remorse or carefully worded guilt control. But the dinner? That was interesting. Everyone would be there. Melissa, Becca, Tyler, even Lisa, if she was back from grad school. Probably the whole Maui crew, minus a few uncles who never really got involved. And they were inviting me? They weren't expecting a happy reunion. They were expecting me to show up awkwardly, keep my head down, maybe say a few stiff, it's fine s, and let them skate past the damage they'd caused. But that wasn't the version of Jake they were getting anymore. No, this Jake was different. Sharper, focused, and for the first time in his life, strategically patient. Because here's the thing about revenge, real revenge. It's not about yelling or slamming doors or sending angry texts. It's about taking control of the narrative. And this dinner? This was my stage. I just needed to prepare. I spent the next week revisiting every string I'd quietly pulled over the years. I started with the Airbnb refund. Turns out, after canceling, the host had rebooked the house almost immediately and issued me a partial refund. $1, $500 back into my account. Not everything I lost, but a decent start. Then I went through my emails and found the itinerary spreadsheet I'd built for the Maui trip. It had all the details, flights, rentals, restaurant reservations, even the snorkeling tour they'd forgotten to cancel. I contacted the companies one by one, posing as the original organizer. Since I had the booking info, it was easy. Some had already charged no-shows. Others refunded portions when I told them the trip was unavoidably canceled. In total, I clawed back almost $1,800 in deposits and fees. I kept it all in a folder on my desktop titled Reclaimed. Next, I called my bank, asked for the statements showing the original Airbnb booking, the car rental deposit, and the flight points transfer. I wanted everything in writing, not for legal reasons, just for the moment I might need to remind them how much I'd contributed. But this wasn't just about money anymore. It was about pattern recognition. I started combing through old texts, emails, even social media messages. The time Melissa asked me to spot her $600 for Becca's birthday party and said, "We'll settle it later." The laptop I bought Tyler 2 Christmases ago when his old one died, because Mom said, "You know how much he relies on you for this stuff." The dozen times I helped Lisa with her FAFSA and grad school essays because she said I was basically family. All one-way streets. All forgotten. But not anymore. I created a document. I called it the ledger. Not to send to anyone. Just to see it. To remind myself that I wasn't bitter. I was just finally keeping score. By the time the 12th rolled around, I had everything I needed. I didn't dress for war. I didn't need to. Simple black shirt. Gray slacks. Clean shave. Calm eyes. I drove to Aunt May's house at 6:45 sharp. The driveway was full. Cars I recognized. Lisa's Mazda. Tyler's beater Camry. Melissa's Lexus that she always bragged about leasing at a steal. The porch light was on. Laughter echoed from inside. I stood at the front door for a moment and let it all wash over me. And then I rang the bell. Aunt May opened the door. Her eyes widened just slightly when she saw me. She pulled me into a hug like nothing had happened. "Jake." "Oh, honey, it's been too long. Come in." I stepped inside. The living room was full of voices. People turned. Conversations paused. A few cousins smiled awkwardly. Becca blinked at me like she'd seen a ghost. Melissa froze, a wine glass halfway to her lips. And Mom just stood there, quiet. I nodded. "Evening." I didn't sit. I stayed by the doorway and let the tension thicken. The silence wasn't mine to break. Eventually, Mom stepped forward. Her voice wavered slightly. "Jake, thank you for coming." I gave a small nod. "I wasn't sure if you would," she added. I didn't respond. Melissa cleared her throat. "Well, now that everyone's here," she said with a brittle smile. Maybe we can finally enjoy some family time. I looked at her. Really looked. Her usual confidence seemed thinner now. Forced. Becca glanced away when our eyes met. Good. Aunt May gestured toward the dining table. Come on, let's eat. I followed them in and took the last chair, at the far end, across from Melissa, between two cousins who didn't speak much. The table was full of food. Roast chicken, mashed potatoes, mac and cheese. Everything smelled good, but my appetite was gone. Dinner started awkwardly. Small talk. People tried to act normal. Someone asked Lisa about grad school. Uncle Rob made a bad joke about airport food. No one addressed the elephant in the room. Until Mom set down her fork and said, before dessert, I think we should talk. Everyone froze. I wrote Jake a letter, she said, voice low. And I told him he'd have the floor tonight. So here we are. She looked at me. Her eyes didn't plead. They didn't even shimmer. But they were open. I stood. Not fast. Not angry. Just steady. I looked around the table. One by one. Letting each of them feel it. Then I said, this isn't going to be a yelling match. I'm not here for apologies or explanations. I paused. I'm here to give you something none of you gave me. They waited. Clarity. I reached into my coat and pulled out a small folder. I set it on the table. This, I said, tapping it, is everything I paid for. The Airbnb, the flights, the van, the snorkeling, the deposits, the rental upgrades, the extra miles, the late cancellation fees when you didn't show up. No one said a word. Total value, $5,820. Not including the hours I spent coordinating, booking, organizing. That was free labor. My gift to the family. Melissa opened her mouth. I raised a hand. Don't. Not yet. I turned to Becca. You said I was boring and would ruin the vibe. But you had no problem enjoying the vibe I paid for. She flushed red. Looked down. To the rest of you. You didn't just cut me out of a trip. You cut me out of the family I thought I belonged to. You used me like an app. You pressed the button when you needed help. Then you closed the window and forgot I existed. I looked at Mom last. And you let it happen. Her eyes glistened. But she didn't look away. I exhaled. So here's what happens now. I reached back into the folder and pulled out two things, a printed invoice and a small white card. The invoice, I said, sliding it to Melissa, is just symbolic. I don't expect payment. I just want you to see it. To know the cost of what you did. She took it with trembling hands. The card, I added, holding it up, is the number of a therapist. One I've been seeing since I got back. She's helped me unpack a lot. And she said something that stuck with me. I looked around the room. She said, forgiveness isn't about letting people off the hook. It's about deciding who you want to carry forward in your life and who you leave behind. I set the card down. Then I sat. The silence was deafening. And that's when Melissa, finally, spoke. But what she said, that was the moment everything truly changed. Melissa stared at the invoice like it had insulted her children. Her perfectly tweezed eyebrows knit together in a storm of fake offense and brewing entitlement. And for a second, I thought she might try to laugh it off. Play the victim. She opened her mouth slowly, as if searching for the perfect condescending line to disarm me. Instead, she blurted, "You're really going to nickel and dime your own family over a vacation?" There it was. No apology. No remorse. Just that classic pivot, turning accountability into an attack. I didn't flinch. Nickel and dime. I repeated. I fronted over $5,000, Melissa. That's not pocket change. That's 2 months of rent or half a year of groceries. And no one even had the decency to tell me I wasn't invited anymore. You weren't uninvited. Becca chimed in, rolling her eyes from the far end of the table. We just thought you wouldn't fit in with the group dynamic. It wasn't personal. I turned slowly. I paid for the roof over your head. You posted 15 selfies with drinks I bought at a restaurant I booked. So yeah, if I didn't fit the group dynamic, maybe it's because I was never treated like part of the group. Just the wallet. Mom's voice broke in softly. Jake, please. Can we just? No, I said. Calm. Final. You said I had the floor. So I'm finishing what I came to say. I turned back to Melissa. I don't want your money. I want your understanding. Because if you ever try something like this again, not just to me, but to anyone in this family, I will make sure it's the last favor you ever get from anyone. You live off manipulation and entitlement. But you forget, every queen needs a castle. And I was the one who built yours. Her jaw tightened. She didn't speak. I reached into my coat one final time and pulled out a USB stick. This, I said, contains every screenshot, receipt, booking confirmation, and Venmo transfer over the last 2 years. Every time you said, "We'll pay you back," and didn't. Every time you asked me to just handle it and ghosted afterward. I've sent a copy to Uncle Rob, to Aunt May, and to your husband, just so they all know what kind of financial favors you've been collecting behind the scenes. Melissa's face turned the color of spoiled milk. Her wine glass trembled in her hand. And before you call it petty, I added, remember, you did this to yourself. You made me the bank. You turned me into the family assistant. Now I'm just handing out your final invoice. Becca stood suddenly, knocking her chair back. This is insane. You're throwing away our whole family over what? Some money. I shook my head. No, I'm walking away from people who only show up when they want something. That's not family. That's a subscription service I forgot to cancel. The room was dead quiet. No one moved. Even Tyler, who hadn't said a word all night, looked like he'd been punched in the stomach. Finally, Mom whispered, "What do you want from us?" And that question, more than anything, told me everything I needed to know. Because even now, even after all the silence, the gaslighting, the exploitation, she still thought this was a negotiation. That this was about getting something from them. I smiled, but it was cold and clean. Nothing, I said. I just wanted you all to see who I really am, when I stopped begging to be included. I stood, tucked my chair back in, and nodded to Aunt May. Thank you for dinner. She nodded, stunned, and reached for my hand as I passed. Her grip was soft, but trembling. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe it was respect. Either way, she didn't stop me. I walked out the front door and into the cool night air. My heart was beating fast, but my hands were steady. My phone buzzed as I reached my car. Uncle Rob, that was the bravest thing I've ever seen anyone in this family do. I'm proud of you. Let me know if you need anything. I stared at the message for a long moment, then smiled to myself. A real smile this time. Over the next few weeks, the fallout was deliciously quiet. Melissa tried to spin it, of course. She posted some vague Facebook status about toxic family members playing the victim, but it didn't get the traction she hoped for. Most of the extended family had seen the receipts I sent. They knew the truth now, and her reputation as the manipulative ringleader? Cemented. Lisa texted me once. Said she was disappointed in how I handled it. I didn't reply. Becca tried to stir sympathy with a sob story about how Jake blindsided everyone at the dinner. Aunt May commented, "He only said what the rest of us were too afraid to." Tyler tried to call. I let it ring out. And Mom, she sent me another letter. A longer one. In it, she said she was sorry again. That she was trying to understand. That losing me had forced her to look at herself in a way she never had before. She didn't ask me to come back. She didn't ask for forgiveness. She just wrote, "I can't change the past, but I'm hoping, one day, you'll let me earn a different future." That one I kept. Did I forgive her? Not yet, but it was a start. Meanwhile, my own life was moving faster than ever. I got the job offer. A 40% pay increase. Better hours. Better benefits. A manager who respected my time and experience. I moved into a new apartment. Bright. Spacious. Mine. I joined a hiking group. Took weekend trips. Reconnected with old friends I'd lost touch with. And I finally started putting money into me. Things I wanted, not things I thought I was supposed to do for others. And that savings account labeled self-fund. It's not just savings anymore. It's an investment. In my life. My dreams. And every time I deposit something into it, I think back to that moment in Aunt May's dining room. The way they stared when they realized I wasn't their fixer anymore. That I had walked in not to be accepted, but to deliver their reckoning. Because revenge doesn't have to be loud. Sometimes, it's just showing up with receipts, telling the truth, and walking away with your head high. No screaming. No second chances. Just silence. And the sound of doors closing behind you. For good.